Welcome to Skyflowers.Tv. In this episode, I want to talk about exploring spiritual concepts and spiritual ideas. Now, the key word here is explore and exploring, because when you look at it, that's essentially what we're doing. We're actually exploring into a new place or a new idea in order to come back with information and facts that we can actually use in our real lives. Now, if you were out, say, camping in the wilderness, in a forest, a lovely, with mountains in the background, and you'd never been to that location before, what you would probably do is, well, first of all, you'd have a map. You would pitch your tent. You'd find a nice spot where you will be camping, and then probably what you'll naturally do after that is go exploring around your campsite and start building up information about what's around you, and things like, is there firewood around, is there a river that you can draw water from and drink, and that kind of thing. And so when you first start camping in the wilderness, your natural instinct is to build up an idea of what's going on in your environment. Now, camping is very different to, say, exploring spiritual concepts, because when you're exploring the physical world, there's physical realities and physical information you can draw upon and you can know and use to your advantage. Whereas spirituality is a very different story, because what you're actually delving into is the abstract world. You're going into the intangible realms. So what you're essentially doing is exploring the mind and looking for truths behind some of these spiritual ideas. And that can lead to problems. Now, when people first get into spirituality and natural health and self-help and all of those kinds of things, usually they get into it because they are desperate. And what I mean by that is that they've got very real problems going on in their lives, and they're looking for answers. They're looking to workshops and books and all of these kinds of things to sort out some of the problems going on in their lives. And so when you first enter into the world of spiritual thought and self-help and all those kinds of things, you don't really ask the basic questions about why you're doing it, what you expect to get from it, and what the results you're hoping to find from it. When you're camping in the wilderness, you basically explore your local environment, and you build up a very concrete idea about what you're doing there, what you can do there, and all of that kind of thing. Whereas spirituality is something very different, because you're entering into the world of thought, and that can lead off in all kinds of directions. As I say to my students, the mind is a maze without walls, and that is one of the central teachings that I tell them, because it is a warning against exploring too deeply into the mind and not coming back to a base camp or a central core understanding that you can bank on and that is fundamental to those explorations. Now, luckily, reality provides a very good basis for exploring spiritual thought and spiritual concepts, but all too often spiritual thinkers get lost in thought, and they go off on tangent upon tangent upon tangent, and they build up a very complex view of the world, and it's not necessarily truthful, factual, or useful. And so a lot of spiritual thinkers can become burdened and bogged down by a lot of information that they've simply taken on without actually assessing it or filtering it or working out whether it's actually true or not. The flower on screen, the flower of belief, is all about that. It's about the basic fact that what you perceive is not necessarily the truth. There's two different things going on. There's the perception of reality, and then there's the reality itself. Now, getting to bottom line reality and spirituality is a lifetime of study, exploration, and meditation. Now, a lot of these concepts that people take on, like the chakras, for instance, that's a concept that's readily absorbed by people. They take it on as though it is a truth about how reality works. Now, I'm not saying that chakras don't work or don't exist. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is our perception of the chakras may be very different from how they actually work. a lot of people who believe in the chakras and work with the chakras, they also can't explain to you how the chakras interface with the physical body, or how the chakras relate to the meridian system flowing throughout the body. And so there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle missing. So what I'm getting at here is, when you start exploring spiritual concepts, build up a basic understanding and build on that understanding. Don't just add a whole lot of information on top of it, because you'll end up confusing yourself. And just like when you learnt how to spell words as a young child, you learnt the letters of the alphabet first. You learnt A, and then you learnt B, and then you learnt C, and you learnt D, and you went right the way through to Z. And once you'd learnt the alphabet, then you could start combining those letters together to make complex words. And so you can start spelling words like elephant and xylophone and things like that. And so what you basically ended up doing was mastering the language that you speak, the reading, the writing, and the understanding when you hear it, simply by having a core factual truth to build upon. And that's how you built up an understanding. All too often, spiritual thinkers don't build up understandings from the physical reality they're living in. They just add a whole lot of cloudy concepts and vague ideas about how things are, and mash it all together, and suddenly they've got a whole lot of thoughts in their head that are just swimming around and not really relating to each other, or providing any real clarity, and basically getting in the way of their living lives. Simplicity, common sense, and just looking at the raw basic truths should be at the heart of your spirituality and your spiritual explorations of these concepts. Come back to base camps, come back to basics once you've gone exploring such ideas as the chakras, as angels and past lives and all of that kind of thing. Come back to reality and see how it all matches up and syncs up with the model that you're building up. And slowly but surely build up a model based on truths, not what you think is true. Now, I hope you got something out of this episode, because quite frankly, I see this as a major problem in this field. The spiritual community, the self-help community, and the natural therapies community all suffer from the same complex way of thinking, overcomplicating reality, and adding a whole bunch of ideas into an already confused mind. Now, when you enter into spirituality and go looking for answers, what you were basically looking for is a clear understanding of how things are, how life is, and how you can actually bring out the best of yourself and live the best life possible. So right now, be very careful about how you explore these spiritual concepts, because that is simply what it is. It's exploring a subject, learning about it, and building up an idea of whether it's true, whether it's false, and whether it actually works for you. But exploring is very different from factual gospel truth, because if you take on a lot of half-baked ideas and half understandings and then go exploring other concepts, you're going to be on shaky ground. So I hope you got something out of this episode, and if you haven't before, subscribe wherever the button is. I forget where it is on the screen because I'm only new to this, and I'll see you in another episode. Bye for now.